clean up an image. Next, I want to look at a couple of filters that we can work with. You've got all sorts of filters in Photoshop. If I come up here to filter, you'll see here's blur, distort, all these different categories with filters underneath them. Now, I have to actually put the filter on the image, but I don't have to do it on the original image. So I'm going to delete this extra layer. I'm going to right-click my image, and I'm going to say to duplicate the layer so that I don't damage the original. And now I'm going to go up here to filter, filter and liquify. There we are. So liquify pops me up with the second window here, and this gives me tools specifically for basically remolding the image. So when you see on videos on Photoshop where they take models and make their hips smaller or make their tummies flatter, a lot of that is done with Liquify. So I could, for example, zoom in on her eyes here, and I've got these tools here. This one here just allows me to push forward. I've got ones here that allow me to reconstruct, ones that pucker, which means it sucks in, ones that bloat, which means it pushes out, push things to the left. I'm going to go ahead and use this bloat tool and make that smaller and just go right on her eye here, and you'll see that what it's going to do is just push it out and make her eye bigger. Okay, so I can go here, let's go a little smaller in that one, and you can see that now she has these unnaturally large eyes. So if I click OK, that now applies to the image there. Again, I did it on the copy so I can hide that and they go back to normal. But this is what people use to do the fine. Normally you're going to be a lot more subtle than what I did there. That's just to help you see what it does. But Liquify allows me to basically push around borders, make things smaller, make things bigger. And again, you want to be very subtle or it's very obvious that it's been altered in that way. Now, we've got some more. Let's go ahead and delete that layer. And let's duplicate it again to a fresh one. We've got some more dramatic things we can do with it. For example, there's one called Spherize. With Spherize, I would come and I'm going to make an elliptical marquee. So again, that's the round marquee. Okay. So I've got this elliptical marquee around her head there. And now I'm going to go up to Filter and Distort and Spherize. And what this is going to do is it actually is going to turn that into a rounded area. You'll see it quite often, this effect in advertisements and things, make it look like a fisheye lens. And I can adjust how strong that is. We'll just pop it out a little bit, maybe there. And then when I click OK, you'll see that now, let's deselect it, that this kind of bubbles out. Okay, so we have all sorts of effects that we can work with up here. All under filter, blur, distort, pixelate, play around with those. You can also go into the filter gallery, which allows you to kind of play with them in these folders and see what each one would do to your image. And you've got settings for the filters over there on the left. Just again, remember, applying a filter directly on the image is destructive. So it's best to do it on a copy of it so that you do not ruin your original. Alright, so let's delete that layer now. So all sorts of adjustments and things that can be used for all sorts of different reasons. We've got one, for example, under the adjustments there. Let's apply a filter to it. Or sorry, let's get rid of that layer actually, and let's do this down here. I'm going to click on my adjustments layers, and I'm going to say I want to do a gradient map. Now the gradient maps basically turn this into I mean exactly what it sounds like, a gradient map, and I can come in and I can colorize these things. Now they've got some presets here. Now that obviously does not look very good, but if I were to go in and I were to reduce the opacity on this thing, come down here and lower the fill of this layer, which we're going to talk about some blend modes in a second, I can give some color over the top of it like so, just to give it different effects. This is often used also for colorizing black and white photos, just to add different effects to it that way. Now, you'll notice I dropped this fill here, and I've got this button here that says normal. These are what are called blending modes. Blending modes are a way to make layers blend together in specific ways to do specific things. I've got a whole bunch of them, and they all have different effects, so it's worth playing around with. But I'm going to show you a couple of them that can be used for some pretty cool effects. I'm going to delete this layer here. I'm going to zoom out. Now, I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to place on that layer. I'm going to do File, Place, and I'm going to place a brick image that I have sitting on my desktop. I'm just going to place it right over the top of that. And I'm going to resize it, and again I'm holding down Shift so that it fits, so I don't, stretch it, just distort it. And we'll just do it like that. We still have the top and bottom undone, but that's fine. Now I'm going to press Return to lock that, to embed that image there. And now I've got a layer with that image and a layer underneath it with the background image. And I'm going to go to the blending modes, and I'm going to choose the overlay blending mode. And what that's going to do is it's going to basically put the texture of the brick on the image underneath it. So overlay is a good way to put texture on an image. And I could come to my opacity and my fill in order to adjust how well that texture, shows up. Maybe I don't want it to be so strong as that, but more of a subtle difference. I can do grains or things like that in that way. For example, if I was applying a grain to it, I would actually create a layer with that was 50% gray, and then I'd set it to overlay mode. So I'd have a layer that was filled with gray, 50%, and then I would put my grain on that, and then do the overlay mode and get a nice grainy image. So that's overlay. It kind of allows you to put those textures onto it. Another one we have here is multiply. If I go in here, right up near the top here is multiply. What multiply does is it actually makes anything that is white transparent and anything that is black opaque. So if you have some line art, something you've drawn, for example, you can put a color underneath that line art, and it'll make all the white transparent, all the black will stay solid, and the color underneath will shine through. So it's a great way to put color under line art. Now let's look at one other thing, colorizing a grayscale photo. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete this layer here, and I am going to add a effects or adjustment layer for black and white. So this is a black and white photo now, and I normally would adjust my filters here to get the black and white that I want to. You can play around with these different filter settings to see which one's going to work best. We'll just go ahead and go with the default for now for this example. And now what I can do is I can make a new layer, and with this layer I'm going to go to my paintbrush and I'm going to fill this layer with a let's find a nice blue to fill it with. And now I'm going to go to my blend mode, and I'm going to change that blend mode to color. And look what it's done. It's made it so it's colored that black and white image with that blue. But it's really strong right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my fill, and I'm going to bring that down to like maybe 50%. I'll even go to the opacity and bring that down a bit too. And this is a good way to get kind of a solid color behind a black and white photo. Give it a tone. So blending modes allow us to take the different layers and have them affect each other in different ways rather than just laying right over the top of it. And working together with these blending modes and with these effects and with these adjustments, there's so much that we can do to our images, and especially when we're masking. So in this situation, again, I could have masked something out of this so that this particular blue effect didn't apply to it at all. So that is image manipulation in Photoshop. Next video we're going to be talking about working with type.